We're kind of live here.
Here we are.
Bro.
Wow.
Bro.
Man.
What's up, dude?
It's good to see you.
Taylor, my dude.
My guy.
How you doing, man?
I'm great.
Dude, we're tell us where we are right now. We're in New York, obviously.
Yeah, we're at Virtue and Vice Studios here in Brooklyn.
BK, Brooklyn, my hometown.
Yeah, baby.
It's so weird
my
that
hometown.
I feel like it's more of your hometown than it is my hometown because I just don't like it as much as I feel like you do.
I love this city because it's new for me. I mean, I've been here like 3 years, maybe a little over 3 years, and it's awesome, man.
You love it.
It's just every it's like I would say twice a week something happens to me where I'm just like, that's a movie. Like
Really?
That's not real.
That's not real.
Like that didn't just happen.
Well, I mean,
it's cool, man.
Because I mean, we come from. It's weird because I came from here, but I don't really like as a person don't come from here. My personality, my character, kind of is from more of where we're from, and we're from a little bit of a small town.
Southwest Florida.
You're born in Southwest Florida. You're born in Cape Coral.
Wrong.
Wrong.
I was born in Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene, Oregon.
In '92.
Okay.
God, that was a long time ago now. Yeah, I was born in Eugene, Oregon, and my parents divorced when I was super young. I think I had just turned 3.
Yeah.
And we moved to Florida. It was just me and my mom, and my grandma was there, and she wanted to spend some time with her mother, and she thought, just like Florida would be a really great place to grow up, and it was. So I moved there when I was super young. So even though I'm not technically born in Southwest Florida, like that's always gonna be like home base. You know,
that's you. That's
yeah.
I've known you since I want to say elementary school.
Long time.
I think I knew your mother before I knew you.
Almost certainly.
I definitely went to the principal's office multiple times, and your mom definitely saved my life multiple times from Mr. Lane giving me referrals all the time.
That's cool to hear because for the people who don't know, my mom was the assistant principal of Gulf Middle School for a lot of years, and I always hear one of two things. It was always, your mom cared, and she saw something in me that not a lot of other people did, or whatever, like similar to, she saved me. And then I also hear, like, your mom scared the shit out of me.
Well, she was definitely still scared.
A lot of people, I remember being in middle school, which was a crazy dynamic of, like, going to the school that your mom is the principal of.
Yeah.
But there were so many kids where I was like, yeah, my mom is Miss Robinson. They would just be like, I hate your mother. Or like, oh yeah, she's cool.
It ain't messing with you. That's crazy, man.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we've known each other a long time, man. I have a vivid memory of you dancing at like a 6th grade dance.
Easily. Harlem Shaking, Crip Walking, A-Town Stomping, Lean With It Rock. I don't even know if that was out yet. But no, I mean... Yeah, Gulf Middle was lit, man. It was good times.
Yeah.
Very humble beginnings there.
Well, and my mom started working there as soon as we moved. So, like, I spent from 3 years old until I graduated at, 13, 14, when you graduated middle school. So 10 years I spent there. I saw teachers come and go, but I walked those halls for years of my life. Like, Gulf Middle School is, like, a big part. It's, it's like a really tangible memory for me with like a lot of others from Southwest Florida that like is just there forever.
Yeah, I mean, Gulf Middle had so many different. I think one of the biggest things I remember about the early stages of that was like they were big on band. Like you had Mr. Jones and different things like that.
Mr. Jones.
Is that how you started playing like music, or or was that earlier? Like,
it's a long. Well, no. My dad was a drummer. He was a session drummer in the Northwest. Really phenomenal player.
So you grew up with drumsticks in your, like you literally were born with drumsticks in your
Yeah, no, I started playing when I was a year old. I couldn't play, and we lost the video somewhere along the way, but I remember watching when I was younger, there was a video of me at like a year old. I couldn't reach the pedals. I was on my dad's drum set, and my mom had the hi-hat closed.
Yeah.
And my dad was on the other side of me doing the kick drum. And I was like keeping like pretty much perfect time, just doing like at like a year old. which sounds like I'm lying. I'm not lying. Like that was a, you know, that happened. And so that was like, I think really early on, my mom was just like, all right, this is a thing. You know, she was never, obviously they got divorced. My mom was not the biggest fan of my father. And so the idea of me being a drummer following his footsteps was something that definitely scared the shit out of her.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I was younger, because I did really well in school. I was really interested in science. I was really interested in a lot of stuff, but music was this thing that
why was she scared? Did like that drumming life, did that musician life have an effect on your dad?
Yeah.
Like what kind of effect are you talking about?
In a huge way. So the full story with my father is I didn't really get to know him until I was on tour with a band, and we had talked on the phone a lot. For those who don't know, my mom passed away in 2009. She fought cancer for like 7 years, and when she passed away was when my dad got on the phone and was like, "Hey, I'm here. You know, I know that like I haven't been, but like this is serious, and you know, there was a lot of times when you needed me and I wasn't there, and this is one time where you need me and I'm there." So I was like, all right, like, you know, whatever. And we got to know each other on tour. He came down to a few shows, and that was pretty mind-blowing, like getting to meet my father rolling up on a tour bus to like a major concert, and knowing that like it was such an awesome thing, because like he was just so proud of me. You know, but when he was younger, yeah, he had a lot of drug problems, and I mean, dude, it was the Northwest in the early 90s. Yeah, he did the drugs like everybody else.
Yeah,
and
who wasn't doing coke in the 80s?
And all of it, and so my mom was just
your mom knew that. Your mom saw like that.
Yeah, well, and you know, and my mom was also in the Northwest in the 90s. Like she when she had me, I think a lot of stuff changed for her, where she was like, I'm a parent now, and she took that really seriously, which was part of the reason when she was like, she eventually got to the point where she was like, all right, man, like I'm not letting you affect this kid, and we're moving. I mean, Oregon to Florida. Right. That was not an accident, you know. So she literally was like, she took me as far away as she could, and I think for her it was, especially when I was younger, it was this really scary thing of like, I've separated him this much, but genetics is something I can't change.
You can't run from.
And so getting back to Mr. Jones, I had been playing a long time. I mean, you're 11 when you go in, so if I started playing at a year-old, but she got me music lessons. Like I took piano. Her whole thing, and this was awesome, was she said, I'll get you drum lessons, but you have to take piano too. Wow. And so I did like 8 or 9 years of
So she knew that musically it was good for you to learn piano.
I think she understood, I mean, being an educator, that studying music from a young age, all the studies show that it's good for brain development, it's good for creativity, it's good for critical thinking, it's good for improvisation, it's good for just developing a young child's brain. So she was fully down for that. And then I think partially hoped that I would eventually get a real job. Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom. Love you.
But she actually hired Mr. Jones. I don't know if anyone knows this, even if Mr. Jones knows this. This is kind of whatever. But their band director left like a year or two before I was supposed to go into middle school. And when Mr. Jones came in, a little bit of background about Mr. Jones. He is like, I owe everything to that guy, and not just the fact that he was like, I think one of the best band directors in the world, but his approach to mastery of anything sticks with me today. I still think about Mr. Jones all the time. Who gets 13-year-old kids to practice 6 hours a day?
Yeah, I mean, I can name multiple people. Yeah, Ian Clary, like all these people.
He was just up here a week ago, or a month ago.
Rojas, there's a bunch of people coming out of Greenstein, Cologne, like all these people coming out. I could say are really great musicians, you know. And I would ask you about, you were talking about early stages of music, playing music, being young, playing music. Yeah. Do you? Cause I would consider you definitely best drummer out of Southwest Florida, and then I would say top 5 musicians out of our area. Period. Thanks, skill level, talent level. Passion level, creativity, all that. Do you feel like So technically, you're sort of like a prodigy in a sense of like from the time. I remember we used to go to church together, and I remember that was probably my first time seeing you play drums. And obviously, if you ever been to a church, it's not that hard to play church drums. But the way you would play them would be great. Even in the bands you were in with Caleb and stuff. Like,
shout out Leb. I know
shout out Caleb, man.
Love you,
we
dude.
would all just be in awe of what, like, you playing. Like, you'd be like, just killing it. Do you feel like it's necessary to start off young as a musician? Like, do you feel like if you don't, you're behind the curve? Like, what do you think
necessary?
About
that? No. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who start music. A really famous jazz guitar player, Wes Montgomery, didn't start till he was 28. Bobby McFerrin, really successful singer.
You're friends with his kids.
His daughter, Madison, I was in a band with for a long time. He didn't start, I don't think, he was like a prodigy when he was younger as far as like piano and theory and stuff, but I don't think he started singing until like later. He wanted to be a piano player. So I would say this. I don't think that it's necessary. People ask me all the time, like if I'm on tour or like I'm telling someone, what I do for a living, people are always like, man, I wish I could play music. Like, I used to play drums and I stopped. I used to play this and I stopped. And I'm always just like, you act like someone died. Like, look, it reduces blood pressure. It reduces stress. It increases brain capacity.
Yeah.
They've done studies on musicians where it gets your brain to a point similar to really, I don't want to say experienced Buddhists, but you know what I'm saying? Like people who meditate for years and years and years and get it to their point where their brain is in a specific state. Music does almost the same thing. So it's just healthy for you. But I will say this, that, it made a huge difference. I remember growing up playing in that church, which was like some of the most formative years of my life because and I talk about this all the time. It's like I don't still go to church. I'm not particularly religious. That's a thing we will not get into in this review because it'll take all the time in the world.
It's like 5 parts.
But my first experiences performing, aside from like concert band and stuff, like being on drums with a band, with guitar and bass and keys and a singer, like a normal band, was in church. And I played in church a couple times a week, every week for like years. And from a really young age, that was my first experience leading a band. But also, I think within the context of church, there's this thing, and I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it, but I know the effect that it had was, and I didn't realize it till I got older, and it really kind of, can I say fuck?
Yeah.
It really fucked with my head as I got a little bit older, but that realization that not only are you playing music and people having this connection or whatever, but in the church, you are directly responsible for not just people's experience the way that it normally is, or that they're having a good time. One of the things I love about music, but their fucking relationship with God.
You're leading them.
Their moment in the week with God is dependent, their worship time is dependent upon you bringing them to a place. And that has never left from me with music, and I still do it because I still want people to connect with God when I play.
That's dope.
And it doesn't have to be religious music. It doesn't have to be anything. I think that I have such like a reverence for what I'm doing and what music is, and I think a lot of people don't understand what it is, man. Like, that's everything.
Dude, so, speaking of some humble beginnings here and whatnot, so you're just, let's kind of set the tone, the context of like, you're in Cape Coral, you're playing all kinds of like, I don't want to say low level things. You've done like Guitar Center. You've won those things.
The drum offs.
Drum off. Like, you've done a lot of stuff back back home. And the series is called Homecoming. We're talking to people who've left. So set the context for us and what made you end up moving away. And like, obviously it could be as simple as I had to go to school, but like, I know that there was maybe a struggle. Like, what made you switch to like, I'm leaving. I'm gonna go.
It wasn't simple.
No.
I touched on this earlier, but my mom died. And
so how old were you when your mom
17. 17. A little bit of context for this, like my mom fought, but for the people watching, like My mom fought cancer for 7 years. At the end, she was deemed medically unexplainable. They were like, you are on so much chemo and radiation and all this other stuff that you shouldn't be able to walk, and you're still working full time, so we're going to run a bunch of tests on you. And they came back just like, the only thing that we can, you are medically unexplainable. The only thing is that you appear to have some sort of mental resilience that we don't understand. Right. The only thing that basically they got to the end and they're like, yeah, it just turns out you're a total badass, you know? Right. And so eventually though, you know, it's cancer, man. It's the worst thing in the world. And she passed, and it was the single most important event that's happened to me in my entire life. Everything in my life is before or after that. It was this, I remember that morning, this distinct feeling of being unsafe, of the safety net. It was like you're on the trapeze and they take the safety net away while you're in the middle of the backflip, and you're flipping and you're like, oh, I'm not safe anymore. You know, it was that feeling of like, all right, no one's coming to save me. I can't half-ass this anymore. And
what phase of life were you in? You were a senior?
I was it was June 16th, 2009. I was in between junior and senior year of high school. So she passed, and I'd still, at this point, I wasn't sure. I knew that I wanted to do music, but I still had options. At 17, you know, you're like, I also had a scholarship to go study environmental science at FGCU. Okay. And she passed, and I had been planning on going to this summer program at Berkley called the 5-week.
Okay.
And you know, because you've lost parents, when that happens, it's so overwhelming, and all you want to do is be, and especially because my mom was a like a leader in the community, being a principal of school. There was 100 people at my house 24/7 for days, and then I had to do the funeral, and I had to speak at the funeral, and then we had to spread the ashes and blah blah blah. And it was just like, I don't know if you remember this, I ended up in the hospital because my appendix burst, and they basically were like, it was your body's response to what was an astronomical amount of stress. And I said, you know what? I'm getting the fuck out of here for a month. And I went to the 5-week. I remember them literally, like, they were like, you can't go home. I was like, I am going home because I have to go to Boston. Sure. Also, take this tube out of my stomach.
Take it out. I remember we were
and they didn't put me under, and they literally, I like held onto my grandfather's arm while they pulled this shit out of me so that I could go to the 5-week. Interestingly, I got to the 5-week, and the only thing they said to me was like, look, like, you'll probably be fine. This isn't ideal, but just make sure you don't climb any stairs. And I got to the 5-week, and they were like, so you're on the 5th floor of the dorms. That's where you're staying. And I was like, no, I can't do stairs. I need to be on the 1st floor. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, something deep inside me was like, do the stairs. And I was like, actually, never mind. And they were like, what? Like, we just, and I was like, no. Like, I just feel like I need to be up there. Went up, first day, I was in the room next to Finn, who is now, I mean, my best friend in the world. We've been in bands together. He's a phenomenal musician. I remember walking in, I'd heard about a jam going on at Berkley somewhere on the campus that night, and I remember walking into his dorm room, just the one next to mine, and just being like, hey, does anyone know where the...
Yeah.
And just like listening to this kid play the craziest jazz shit I'd ever seen in my life. And,
so you seem like you really needed to get to that 5-week. You mentioned a little bit, like, it was like this do or die mentality. Like, no one's gonna save me. Why? Like, why? Why did you feel that? Like, what? Was like your mom was like.
I know that sounds. It was because it was. I didn't have any brothers and sisters. My dad wasn't around. It was just my mom, and your mom. She was everything, and it was. It was the hardest thing. I mean, and it's only been in the last, like, 2 years, and that was 8 years ago. It's only been in the last 2 that I have really been able to even think about my childhood. Sure. In a way that is not so painful to go back to that it's not worth it. And now, like, that I think I've had time to go through all the stages and all the build something out of the rubble, it was like... now I think about my mom, and it's awesome. I think about growing up in Southwest Florida. One of the reasons I took this interview was because I was like, you know what, it's time, I think, to, on a public level and just for myself and for the people who I know will watch this who were there and remember all this shit going down, that I'm good and I'm moving on.
We want to know what's going on with it. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this series. It's kind of like we want to know, we want to champion like the people that are doing great things and catch up with them, and with you, man. I think why I've been so excited. I mean, obviously I've talked to you multiple times. I came out to visit you in Boston one time.
I remember.
Yeah. So like one of the things that I think is important is to like that I wanted to ask you is like, you know, your pain. Do you
nicotine, not weed, kids. Don't do drugs.
Do you feel like your like and I get it too, right? So like your pain that you experience, almost like fuels, like because you literally had a life traumatic thing happen, and then boom, you go out to Boston to Berkley College of Music, and you kill it, right? Do you feel like it pushed you even more, like to like deeper in?
Yeah, I mean it was like I always think about it. I'm not gonna call it, we'll get into this, but I'm making a record right now, and I think it's a stupid title, and also Chance just named his record 3, but I've been thinking about, someone said you should call it 3 or chapter 3, because what it really felt like was everything before my mother. I had this amazing childhood, man. Like, we didn't have a ton of money, but like it was just me she had to provide for, and she was an assistant principal, so like we got to travel all the time. She was just the one of the best people I have ever met. Mm-hmm. And everyone thinks that about their mom. I'm kind of an asshole about, like, I think that you should judge people by their actions, and I don't give people the benefit of the doubt when they don't deserve it. Right. On some like unbiased shit, my mother was one of the most integral, selfless, passionate, hardworking people I've ever met in my life. And so anyway, when she died, it was like catastrophic for me, and I moved on, and it pushed me. That feeling of not being safe, man. Like, just, I gotta get safe. Like, I have to get to a point where I feel, and then also it was like, you know, you're gonna die someday just like that. Don't waste your fucking time. Like, do not waste any more time. It was this really deep thing of like, dude, it's gonna happen to you someday.
So you felt your life. Death is a sobering feeling. It wakes you up to your life and the shortness of it and the vitality of the time you have. So like, and the same thing for me, man. Is like when you lose someone and you realize, one, that you've lost them, and two, that you're gonna die one day too. Who knows when? It pushes you, and I think that's one of the things I empathetically admire about what you've done with your, you know, chapter 2 of your life. You know, like, I think like it's cool because you use that pain to keep pushing yourself, you know, to all the things you've done, which we're going to get into, all the things that you've done post that stuff, but. You know,
well, it was also cool. It was the only thing I could control, right? It was like my life felt completely out of whack, and I was like, this is happening to me. Like, this isn't like I started doing heroin and my life fell apart. This isn't like I made a terrible decision. Like, this just was like, you know, it's like the asteroid thing. Like, this came out of nowhere. Fuck shit up in my life, and I was just like, I can't control any of that. I can't control any of the fact that I am depressed as fuck. I can't control that I have crazy anxiety now. I can't control all these things, right? I can control the one thing I've been controlling since I was a year old. I am good as fuck at drums, and I'm going to focus on that. Crazy. I'm going to focus on music because it's my religion, man. It's the only thing that hasn't changed. Right. It's like, it's been the constant in my life since I was a year old. Like, everything feels different than when you were a kid, right? Like, that feeling of growing up and losing your innocence and really realizing the way the world works. Music always feels the same. It's the only thing that has felt the same. And so it pushed me. And then so like I made that decision to go to Boston and do the thing, and it really paid off in a big way. You know, I got to tour all over the world. I got to play with some amazing musicians,
Let's talk about that, man. Like, you go to Berkeley. Tell us what was it like with Berkeley musically? Like, who were you running into? What were you doing?
It was Hogwarts.
You would send me texts or like Wyclef and stuff. Like, break that down.
That was like the first week I was there.
Yeah. What was Berkeley like, man? Boston. What was that like?
It was insane. It was. Well, you know, growing up in Southwest Florida, it was like there was not. I thought it was a cool music scene, and then when you move to a place like New York or Boston or any of these great Minneapolis, New Orleans, Austin, Atlanta, any of these cities that have like phenomenal music scenes, like for me it was just showing up. And Berkeley is the most densely populated group of musicians probably in the world, at least in terms of talent. It's all these kids from all over the world. I think there's like 47 countries represented at Berkeley. It's actually the most diverse student body of any school in the at least in the country, and it felt like Hogwarts, man. It felt like
musical Hogwarts.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, I'm here. This is where I belong. These are my people. Like, and
were you intimidated at all by that? Like the fact that there were so many good musicians, because you were big fish, small pond in chorus.
But that's one of the reasons why I went there, was because I was like, I think that I have something, but I want to know, you know, like.
So you went there like, yo, I'm about to kill the shit.
No, not like in an arrogant way, because that is one thing too that just like I've seen that destroy musicians' careers and reputations. It's like, yeah, we're just there's only 12 notes, man, and it's like you're not solving brain cancer. It's like don't take yourself that seriously. For me, it was just. I wanted to be there, and I wasn't scared. I was definitely not scared, but like, I remember getting there, and it was this feeling of like, all right, like this guy's got a lot of chops, or this guy's played with, you know, whoever, or I saw what I had and what I didn't have, but I got there, and I was like, no, I think I'm gonna be all right, and I think that, and it's funny because going back to that growing up in church thing, I think having that playing from such a deep place, and having that on lock, was like, I may not have the craziest chops, and this is the thing that people have told me, you know, in my career, like now that I have one, is people were always like, I feel more when you get on the kit. It's not like, yo, that chop, or like, oh, like you blew my mind. It was just like, man, you really meant that. You meant every note.
Right.
And that's one thing I'm proud of. It's like, it's sacred to me, and I play from a deep place. So when I got there, I was just like, you know, I'm in it to not to win it, because it's not really a competition, but I'm here and I mean business. And so basically what happened was, I started a band called Cosmodrome with myself, Madison McFerrin.
Cosmodrome, shouts out to Cosmodrome right now.
It's me, Madison McFerrin, Finnegan Singer, and Charlie Riddell. And we had like a pretty good run for like, you know, a funk R&B soul band from Berkeley, like everybody else does. And I'm really proud of that music, and that was sort of my first experience of like, you know, really being a musician and going out on tour. And we did like 4 years of just tons and tons and tons and tons of shows.
People just booking you guys out, like.
Yeah, and it eventually just sort of got to the point where we were like, all right, without, you know, going too much into stuff, it was just like we all felt a hunger to move on. Like nothing was wrong. Maybe you've had that experience with relationships with girls where you're like, there's nothing wrong with you. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't hate you. You didn't do anything.
You didn't do anything wrong.
But I just know that I have to move forward. Right. And I remember we had all kind of had that discussion of, like, let's take a break on this for a while. And then I got a call from this band, Air. It's like reggae, indie rock, hip-hop thing, who had been doing really well. And they hit me up, and I went on tour with them for, like, 3 years. I think we did 336 shows in 16 countries or some shit like that.
What in the world? Yo, just stun it on us real quick. Hold on. Bro, I see pictures, video of you, these huge crowds, man.
Yeah, like, crazy.
Dude, how was that, the stadium? You played at Red Rock, right? Did you play at Red Rock?
Played at Red Rocks. Yeah, it's crazy. I still don't know. I don't know, man. I still don't know how to process it because it was like, I'll tell you this. I never had that feeling of, it very quickly said, like, I remember my first show with them was House of Blues Boston. They're from Boston. It was sold out hometown show. Whatever that is. Like, House of Blues Boston is the biggest House of Blues. It's a big show. It's the biggest show by like tenfold of anything I had ever played. And they were fucking ready for a show. It was a fucking rock concert. And I just remember like going out there, freaking out, and having like a little moment to myself to just be like, damn, this is cool. This is cool. And then by the 15th show, I was just like, you know what, man? Like, and then by the 100th show, it's like, nobody gets to do this. You are not special. You are very lucky. You know, and it immediately, like, that's the craziest thing about playing. Like, one really awesome story is Firefly 2014. It was a legendary show for us. We show up. I remember we get in the golf cart. I don't know where they're taking us, what stage we're playing on. Drive straight at that main stage. I'm like, let's go. We drive straight past the main stage. I'm like, all right, I see the next stage. We're on that stage.
Of course we're on that stage.
We're going right towards it. We drive right past it. That happened 3 or 4 times. Finally, they drive us to the end of the festival, and we're at the Forest stage. And it's still a big stage, but like when you see the stage that Paul McCartney's going to play on, and they drive you to the, you know, and there's like, you know, there's like 20 kids standing out there, and we were just like, oh man, Firefly was supposed to be cool. And we're just like, all right, shit. And what we didn't know yet is the doors weren't open to the festival.
Wait, who were some of the, I gotta know, you said you drop, you gotta have to name drop a little bit. Who were some of the people that you run into? Just start naming them. Like, who were some of the,
I'm not gonna.
I'm asking you, so you're not bragging.
Well, okay, so first let me finish the story, because the finish is good. So we're all bummed out at Firefly because we think that it's going to just be a terrible show because there's no one there. And we didn't realize that the doors weren't open yet. And we went and did our, like, huddle thing, you know, before the show. And our tour manager comes in and he goes, yeah, there's like 20,000 people out there. And there was. And we, from the 20 minutes that we were just like, all right, let's just go, like, we'll drink the shit in the green room. We'll do our huddle. Like, guys, it's going to be an okay show. Like, whatever. We're going to go out there. We're going to kill it for those 20 kids. And there was literally 20,000 people when we went out on stage. And deafening, you know? And so, like, stuff like that, it was always just, like, this real sense of, like, responsibility. Of, like, all these people are trusting you to... They're so ready for a show. They're trusting you with giving them something, you know?
And it's like going back to the church experiences.
It never... It's all the same thing.
It's the same thing.
And I never felt like I'm the shit. I'm playing for all these people. The only time I ever enjoyed that, and going back to the Red Rocks thing, was I did allow myself a moment. I've played a lot bigger shows than Red Rocks. I've played whatever, but there is something about that place where I remember playing in my room as a kid, and I knew about Red Rocks because one of the first concert DVDs I ever got was U2 Live at Red Rocks, and I remember sitting with my eyes closed, playing the drums and trying to envision being on that stage, and I fucking cried during the middle of the show. Like, there was definitely a moment where I was just like, you're looking in the face of everyone who told you it was a dream,
right? That,
like, no one gets. I remember so many times, well, you know, man, like, have a backup plan, because it's one in a million. And you're staring at that crowd. And Red Rocks, for those who don't know, it's this amazing concert venue, probably the most famous concert venue in the world. But it's in Red Rocks, Colorado, right outside of Denver, and they built it into the mountain. And if you play an arena, it goes out and then up, or if you play an amphitheater, it goes out, or if you play a rock club. There's no stage at Red Rocks. It's just the floor, and then it goes up for, like, whatever, like 10,000 people.
Sure.
And it's this unbelievable feeling of, like, not necessarily I've made it or any of that, just like it's like the universe is like, I know you worked hard. I know how hard you worked. I remember all those hours. Like, you've seen Whiplash like everybody else. I played till my hands bled.
That movie is like, so good.
And Mr. Jones was very much like that, but he was so much kinder, you know, but in terms of him expecting excellence. He was very much like what's his name, JJ, the guy who plays that J.K. Simmons? Anyway. And anyway, so Red Rocks is amazing. As far as like people I've gotten to meet at festivals and shit, I don't know, like a lot of people, everybody, man. Not everybody. That's a ridiculous thing to say.
Everybody.
But it was unbelievable.
You met Tyler and Most Def, right?
Yeah, we did. Well, we've done. There was one festival in particular, Wuha in Tilburg in Netherlands, that was just like the lineup for that stage was like Air and then YG and then Chance and Most Def and Isaiah Rashad and
that's wild, dude.
Like crazy shit, you know. So everybody was hanging out and like shout outs to Chance. It's really dope watching him run the fucking planet now because I remember meeting this much younger man who was just so kind, and I remember I was standing on stage with him and we were watching Most Def and I had like 2 cigarettes left and maybe only 1 or something. I was still smoking cigarettes at the time and I just was like, hey man, like do you mind if I smoke a cigarette? And he goes, yeah, I'll take a cigarette. And I was just like, damn, it's my last cigarette. Finding cigarettes at music festivals is impossible. It's terrible. They don't sell them. When they do, they're like $30 pack. And I was just like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, and I remember saying to him, like, man, like you made the record that like made my summer, so duh, you can have a cigarette
easily. You could deny him of a cig.
And so, anyway, we just sat and talked about music for a little while and watched Most Def do his thing, which was crazy. And then like later that day. There was a bunch of artists, including Chance, like sitting around smoking a jazz cigarette. And I remember him like remembering my name, just being like, yo, Taylor, come here. Like, thanks for the cig, like, blah, blah, blah. And,
well, his brother's name's Taylor, so.
I know. And I just remembered that, just being like, you know what, you didn't have to do that. And it was a testament to his character. And now, actually, I'm hoping we get to a point in this interview where I get to like plug a lot of my friends who maybe people don't know. But there's this band, Third Story. They're like super close friends of mine. My friend Ben Lusher. Did you see the Tiny Desk?
Yeah.
You know the 3 dudes in the back singing?
Yeah.
That's Third Story. They're like super close.
Oh,
in New York.
yeah.
And they were like, I think they did Fallon or something with him, and then they did this tour, and now as far as I know, they're like in the band or whatever, and it's just so great. I cannot say enough about that guy's character as far as like the music he's making, the fact that he has brought on like great musicians. He always has put on his band like Nico, putting out Surf under Donnie Trumpet.
That's the big look,
like,
man.
He didn't have to do any of that, but to me, it seems like his character is his currency, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I love that.
So
I love that. Skip, well said, dude. So tell me, like, you how do all these music experiences, Berkley. Yeah. Air, Cosmodrome. Yeah. I mean, running into all these people, like, you know, you're the band Air. You kind of disbanded, right? Done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are you doing now? Like, how you take all those experiences? You're in New York. What's going on with you now?
Well, I decided I want to make a record. That decision, it took like a long time for me to get there, but like, I found myself playing more guitar than drums and playing more keys than drums and gravitating towards storytelling, whether it was movies or songs or whatever. It was like the things that really used to like get me when I was younger, whether it was like listening to like Dennis Chambers play or like some whatever crazy music I was into at the time. Like, I started to get more and more into bands that like brought me to a place, like a movie or something.
Sure. And
so I was like, you know what, man? I've lived I would say a lot of life for only being 25. That sounds ridiculous or arrogant or whatever, but like I have this story, and I want to tell it, and not necessarily the record isn't all just gonna be about like my whatever, but I wanted to make songs. So at first it started with just like, trying to make stuff in my own little studio. And then I had the realization, like, you know what? I'm surrounded by so many great singers, producers, songwriters, engineers, musicians that, like, I can get a basic idea happening. And then bring in these people. Like, I have this bass line. Bring in, Charlie Riddell or Ben Carr. and get the sickest bass line. I can write a keys thing and try and bring in like K.L. Hawkins or someone like that, you know, to like, and so that's sort of where I'm at now is like, I'm making a record and I'm fucking stoked about it because so far, like now that I'm whatever, like 10 songs in or something, I want to write like
10 songs
40 and then, you know, but when I say 10, it's like, they're not finished. Like some of them need a lot of shit. Some of them are closer to being done than others, but I like it.
And you're bringing in all these different musicians for the project, or is it all?
Yeah, well, the whole thing was just like I wanted to like paint the picture of like this scene and this like being in New York, surrounded by all these great musicians and the sounds that I hear and like the story of that only I can tell, like my perspective of being around all these great musicians, being in New York, going to Berkeley, like all these sounds that I've heard, trying to pull all that into something that is really good, and then also, you know, just develop a regiment of songwriting for myself, because at the end of the day, it's just like drums. You got to do it just because you like doing it. So that's sort of where I'm at now, and so it's, you know, it's early.
Man, like it's exciting. That's exciting, man.
I'm stoked about it because so far I really like the stuff.
My question for you is, because your potential and what you're gonna do is unlimited. You know, we're doing this series called Homecoming, and I want to ask everybody towards the end of the interview the same thing, and I want to ask you the same thing. Is, what is your advice to people who are still in Southwest Florida that might want to venture out to a bigger place, bigger pond, right? What is your advice to them, man? Because you've navigated the waters well, but
Thanks.
Yeah, and so we would just love to know, man. Like, you have anything that you would like maybe wish you would have known before you left, like that you could give to people watching?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone is sort of on their own. Like for me, I would have never stayed. Not because I have anything against Southwest Florida, although because of everything that went on, it was difficult for me to be there. But I left because I had to, because like it wasn't just like I'm gonna go make it as a musician. It was sort of that, but it was more just like a bug to the light, man. It was like I have to get out and go. And for me, yeah, I mean, it was intimidating and it was scary, but I think at the time it was like I was a kid, so you have that whole like I'll jump on the rope swing or I'll jump off the bridge, you know, into the water, like whatever the dumb shit you do when you're a kid. It's like I still had that. Like at 25, the idea of leaving New York and moving to LA scares me. Yeah. So, or whatever, like doing anything, like at that age, it's like but here's what I'll say, man, is like I still am pushing for more, and I know that there's a lot more to my life that is still to happen, but like I am so happy that I left, that I went, that I had that I did it, man, because like it's been fucking cool. Just do it.
Would you tell people just to go?
Like on some Shia LaBeouf. Just
do it.
Literally though, just fucking do it. What are you afraid of?
What's the worst that could happen?
Terrible things. So what? Do it anyway, man.
I love that. Terrible things. You're not lying to them.
You're not safe. You're not going to be any safer in Southwest Florida. Go do it, and or do what you've done. Stay there and build a culture. Like, I'm so proud of you for everything. Like, I remember going to Southwest Florida, there was fucking nothing.
Sure.
As far as culture and music, and you've done an amazing job. But, so if you want to stay, but work just as hard and invest in that community. If you want to go,
I love that.
Then go. Right. Then just go do it, man. That's it. It's just every day wake up and just it's like that. I hate to end with a Kanye West quote. I don't even know if it's direct
that's
quote.
Perfect.
But I heard this thing that was like, make dope shit or fuck you. And that, I don't even know if it's real, but I think about that all the time. It's just like, you know. Like
I think, man, I think in the end, like you said, I think every step of our life, when we're doing something, it's a culmination of our experiences that led up to the point. And so for you, man, 2017 in Berkley, New York, seeing your humble beginning, seeing, you know, your wild middle of your journey of playing everywhere and meeting people and doing your thing, pushing through the pain and making it out here. and now you got this record coming, this project that you're about to really kill. We're excited for it, man. Thank you for doing this interview.
Yeah, of course.
And man, we're
happy to do it, man.
Dude,
love you, buddy.
Love you too, man.
All right.
Peace.